Breaking news from college football, the University of Virginia football team will not play this weekend. The campus there is mourning the loss of three football players, Devin Chandler, Lavelle Davis Jr., and Deshaun Perry, who were shot and killed Sunday night, returning from Washington, D.C. on a school field trip. Two others were wounded, and the suspected shooter was taken into custody on Monday. The Cavaliers were scheduled to play their final home game of the season this coming Saturday against Coastal Carolina. That game officially now canceled and called off this morning. The school says no decision has been made for the final game of the season. That's at Virginia Tech, which is scheduled for Saturday, November 26th. For more on this developing situation now, we bring in Jacquie Franciulli from 24/7 Sports, who covers UVA. Jacquie, you've been there on the grounds since Monday. Your initial reaction and what has been the reaction of the team and the players as they try to deal with this situation right here?
I think a lot of the reaction from these young men is how can this happen? They're still trying to process the events that have occurred the last few days. They're trying to live their lives without having these three brothers, three family members that they consider three friends in their lives. Yesterday they had a team meeting. It was the first time the whole team really got to get together and just cope with this. Don't forget, when this was all going on the whole school was in lockdown and the shooter was still on the loose and he was targeting Virginia football players. So there was a lot of emotions that go behind that. Not only are you grieving players and friends that but you're also scared of this man is still on the loose. So there was a lot of emotions on Monday. Yesterday, Tony Elliott mentioned in his press conference, they were trying to celebrate the lives of Lavelle Davis, Deshaun Perry, and Devin Chandler, sharing stories. Some of these players were also going to the vigils that have set up across grounds at Scott Stadium. There's flowers around. There's at the Homer statue, there's flowers. There's all the jersey numbers around at the rotunda, at the lawn. There's a lot of different vigils, and players just going to these places to show their respects for these three young men. So the game being canceled on Friday is not shocking, considering where they are in their grieving process. They have a path to heal, but that's going to take some time. So they're not thinking of football. Tony Elliott was asked, what is the biggest question that these players have for him? And they just been asking, when can we talk to the families of these three players? When can we talk to them? How are they coping with this? And they're also worried about Mike Hollins, who is still recovering at the UVA Medical Center. He was the other player that was shot during the Sunday night shooting, and he just had his second surgery yesterday. It went well, but that's also who they're thinking about. So there's a lot more things going around on this Virginia team. So no surprise that this game was canceled on Saturday.
Yeah, football seems to be very far from the mind of anyone there in Virginia about actually getting back out there onto the field. The team, of course, has not even practiced, so to expect them to be able to play on Saturday would be very, very short-sighted. The sense from the players that you've been able to be around and be able to hear from, do you feel like are they rallying together, or how are they trying to cope with the situation right now?
They're definitely rallying together. And I think Carla Williams, the athletic director for Virginia, and Coach Elliott both said it in a press conference. They're trying to make sure these guys are not isolated. They're trying to make sure that they're surrounded by either staff members or other players. They want to make sure they have the support they need. I asked Carla Williams what type of counseling they're offering these men, and they're saying that they have three current psychologists on staff at UVA, and they're going to be available for not only the football players, but also other Virginia student athletes. Because again, a student athlete community is very small. So everyone knows each other. A lot of these football players, including Lavelle Davis, Deshaun Perry, and Devin Chandler, went to other games. They were at soccer games. They were at volleyball matches. And these players are also affected. The Virginia women's basketball team is currently playing their first game. That's the first of Virginia athletic event that is occurring, that's happening tonight at the Loyola Chicago, and they're playing tribute to these men. And so there's a lot of people just kind of trying to get these Virginia football players and just kind of surrounding them and making sure they're okay and just checking in constantly right now.
We've seen shootings far too often happen like this across the country. Now this one, of course, affecting UVA, but the shock waves go throughout the country from an outpouring of support from other schools all across the country, tweeting and offering their condolences. They're on campus at UVA. Has there been any sort of kind of just one spot where all students can go who have been affected by this, who knew the players, who want to be able to offer their thoughts and prayers?
Well, they had a vigil on Monday night, but like I pointed out, they have a couple of vigils around grounds, like in Scott Stadium. You can go and deliver flowers right out of the gates. There's other places where they've kind of built up vigils. There's going to be a run on Thursday evening so that you can run around Scott Stadium. It's going to be at 4:00. So if you're in Charlottesville, you'll be able to run in this memorial. They're also trying to do an official memorial or vigil for these athletes as well, but they haven't set anything up. So right now, that's what the community is doing. And then as far as what, Carla Williams and Tony Elliott are doing, they're also trying to work with the players, because one of the biggest questions that they also had was, can they attend these funerals for these three men when they eventually have these funerals from where they're coming from? Because obviously this affects different communities. Lavelle Davis is from South Carolina. Deshaun Perry was from Florida. You had Devin Chandler from North Carolina. So it affects different communities. And Carla Williams says the NCAA rules allow them now to pay for these players to go to these funerals as well if they need to and if they want to. So that is kind of what the community is doing, rallying with GoFundMe, also going and showing their respects at Scott Stadium, Hilmer, honestly, anywhere on UVA grounds.
When we heard from head coach Tony Elliott yesterday during his press conference, obviously an emotional time, and he had emotion in his words when he spoke. What was your biggest takeaway from how he is dealing with this as a leader, as a first-year head coach here in the program, trying to navigate through this difficult situation?
I mean, he is handling it as much as anyone can handle in this situation. I think no one has a playbook or a game plan when it comes to this situation. He's a man that says he's family first, and these are three sons that were murdered. So he is handling as much as possible. He is also a father of two young sons, a 9-year-old and a 7-year-old, who consider these men also their friends and their brothers. There's a lot of staff members on this team that have young children. Coach Marquise Hagans, he's the wide receivers coach. 2 wide receivers were killed, and, he has 2 young sons, and you just see the pictures on social media of these boys with Lavelle Davis going to their baseball games over the summer, cheering them on in the sidelines. And it's just, you don't know how to handle this, because you have to not only care for your own family and you have to care for your own mental sanity, but you also have to deal with over 100 people in your program and help them deal with this when you don't have the answers. So Tony Elliott is doing as best as possible. You heard his emotions in his voice. You can see he was trying to hold back tears, but yet he still smiled when he talked about each individual player, talked about Deshaun Perry being one of the most interesting person in this team, talking about Devin Chandler being the life of this team, and then talking about Lavelle Davis, who is the big man on campus. He was literally the big man on campus, being about 6'7", and just seeing the emotion that he said through those. And that's exactly what he wants to show these players that are dealing with this. You can celebrate the lives of these 3 men and just remember them in the way that, memories, like Devin Chandler can't play video games. Those are the memories they're holding dear. And that's what he's trying to do with this team.
Jacquie Franciulli, thank you very much for joining us here on HQ. She's our 24/7 sports reporter covering UVA out in Charlottesville as we still deal with the after effects of that shooting that happened on Sunday night on the campus of UVA. To recap the breaking news, UVA will not play their football game this coming Saturday. It was supposed to be their final home game of the season against Coastal Carolina. That game has been canceled, and a decision will still be made for their final game of the season, which will be a road tilt against Virginia Tech. But this Saturday, no football for UVA against Coastal Carolina.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.